I'm now recording, and then gonna bring us in now. Welcome back, everybody, to the Caster Couch. It is the end of lower bracket day number 2. Sorry, lower bracket 2, I should say. And what are our thoughts on that one? Let's just hop into it, because I think day 1 and day 2, we saw a couple of teams kind of thrive in both, but there were a few that really stood out in one or the other.
I think
Yes.
I'll let Saga go ahead on this one because I'll be
All
honest, I
right,
didn't even manage to catch most of the games for day one. I'm happy I
right.
got back for day two, but go ahead.
So it's fun because I'm in a similar boat because I was recruited to help some friends move a washing machine into their new house yesterday. But I managed to catch at least like the first half. I went back and watched at least like highlight moments and Twire replays and stuff. But we will start off from the very beginning. Game number 1, of course, this being the bracket 3, upper middle bracket, the final bracket before we go into grand survival, where only 4 more teams can qualify through winner chicken dinner. You have to be qualifying now, and only 4 of the teams there could do it. Everyone else is going to be giga stressed on tomorrow's set of games. So the teams that were coming out looking strong at the very start were obviously going to be favored coming into this. And then the circle machine decided it had favorites, and it really wanted certain teams that drop in certain areas to have the best time of it. Like every flight path was basically the same, phase 1 basically the same on every single Erangel game. We went down southwest towards Quarry every single time, and surprisingly enough, the team that comes out ahead drops nowhere near that area. You've got teams like Question Mark, Buriram, they had central spots every single game. How about the Kameshki team rocking up and getting top 2 in all of the first 3 games? It was absolutely nuts, and they even managed to pick up a win in game number 2. It is, of course, Begopar. Like, what is going on? How do you even get in second place twice, 3 times, dropping in Kameshki on a quarry circle? Makes no
Yeah.
sense.
It's crazy, and I'm like I never really had them on my list as like a top 4 contender in a lobby like this. I always had them as a team like, yeah, if they have a good day, top 8 seems reasonable. But they really pulled up, and they really played some good PUBG as well. It's like not just getting lucky, it's not just getting everything right, but really good macro play, putting themselves in really good spots. And yeah, I mean, even that game that ended next to the God compound, they really didn't have a right to perform that well in that game either.
No,
Just the
I
wrong
mean we've
clip.
got a lot of. It's fine. We can just move on to this, but like it's a lot of the same circles. I mean, you talked about this in the previous like section when you were doing watch parties, Ko. It's like every circle just seems to be going the same place during this event, and
Yeah.
it's rough for a lot of the teams. But Begopar has just kind of proven that it's fine. Like just be the best in the world, and be incredible at playing from the edge and playing slow and making your way in, and you can still get away with it. It's totally fine. I can't imagine that's going to be the case tomorrow in Winner Chicken Dinner. I think teams that are going to be playing more centrally and getting the circle favors are going to have a much better time of it, and it's going to be stressful
Yeah.
if you're not. But when we're talking about this, it's like we've had 1 team eliminated already. LG has disappeared. Tomorrow, we're going to see 16 teams
Yeah.
eliminated, or 15 rather.
15.
So there's a lot riding, and only 4 teams can qualify. And I don't think we saw a little hint of it in the clip that was just played, so we may as well run the whole thing. I don't think anyone coming into this event imagined that these 2 teams were going to be playing in the Grand Survival. Petrichor Road, New Happy. If you look at anyone's pre-PGC tier list,
Yeah.
guaranteed both of these are in the S tier, in the top tier of teams that are like favorites to win the whole event. And both of them are going into the Grand Survival where they have to win 1 of 4 games to make it to the finals. It's nuts.
I I sort of pulled the boring card, as my German heritage requires me to do, and said, well, everyone's like doing these predictions, and everyone's thinking, oh, Group A is way better, these teams are way better, and in reality, it is so hard to predict what happens in these tournaments. It's so hard to
Mm-hmm.
compare international tournaments to national tournaments, and I think Pero are a good example of that, where they always look absolutely fantastic. and then suddenly in the globals, they really struggle. And like you said, everyone had New Happy, everyone had Pero all the way up the list. And I still think they're both teams that can really look good in winner chicken dinner format. But we'll talk more about that later when we have the scoreboards ready. Maybe we'll just sort of
I think
get our way through the days and then talk about that later.
Petrichor Road, I would back them to win a game in the 4 games tomorrow. They've won a decent number of games through group stages and through the previous brackets. New Happy has just been they haven't done anything
convincing
like
at all.
no, being the team that came in, they won the previous global. There's a lot of like hype around the teams. People are like Ming Ming, Zipiani, they're the best players in China and probably the world, and they really haven't had any success. I'm not even like I haven't looked at the stats, but they've won nowhere near as many games, if any, as Petrichor Road. So I am very worried about their chances. But like we say, Petrichor Road should probably.
The one
be
thing
fine.
I think they have going for them is when they get a feed, they are a team that doesn't throw it. They're good enough, and they have Ming, Ming Ming, sorry, which is a weapon in itself. When they get a feed and they don't get griefed early game or grief early game, which they like to do sometimes, they're really dangerous, which can easily happen in 4 games, but you're still up to a lot of random chance there for sure.
It's not the odds that you want in your favor. You know, they are not. It's not the way you want to be going into it. If it was 16 matches, you could say, okay, yeah, we stand a chance of making it through. But it isn't like those tournaments of days past. Sorry, I've had a long day today. So now that we go into that top 4 situation, it's going to be so difficult. And I think that a squad that really popped off in day number 1 that a lot of people expected to see just jump straight into the grand finals, though, has to be Wildcard.
Yeah, I mean,
Undeniably.
I think Saga made a good point, or a lot of people made a good point. If we roll that clip, they are record breaking in both ways, right? They have this insane game, setting a new kill record in a PGC game, and then they also today had a 2-kill win, the polar opposite. So showing that they can do both, and showing that they have a good reason to be here. They're one of the solid NA teams. They're one of the consistent NA teams, and they're also, I feel like, one of the nicest teams. I just love, like, you know, Cow having a bit of success. Adam, they're both like super genuine and nice people, and it's great to see them. It's great to see them in the top spots. I think when we look at the leaderboard after day 1, even with that win, they were only 4th, but still, that was a big step for them, at least, to push themselves towards the top and have a chance at qualifying.
38% of their points came from that one game. In the whole thing, almost 40% of their point from the what, like, that is actually
Crazy.
Insane. 32 points in a single game. If they only played that game, they would outplay Sonics. Like, it's
Ouch.
crazy. They would outplay Cerberus. They would outplay Centropic. They would not be last if they only played one game. And it's crazy. That really gave them a massive boost. But then, like, maybe it was just like a bit of contingency planning. They did win another game in today's matches as well, where they didn't do anything particularly impressive. They kind of held compound for a while, timed their aggression, picked up a 2-kill win. So maybe that was, you know, contingency plan. If we end up in Grand Survival, we're just gonna like test out how we're gonna play and timing aggression, which is a very underrated skill, I think, in PUBG, is like getting the aggression timing right, and teams that do it wrong are pretty blatant about it. But really, like, Wildcard, they've really deserved it. I think they've played really, really solid PUBG really well, and the fact that they've come out, and if there was going to be another NA team breaking a record for most points gathered in an international event, I don't think a lot of people would have expected Wildcard to be the team to do it. So the fact that they've come out here with 2 OCE players, just going to throw that out there as well, and just gone absolutely wild is great to see. So I'll be excited to see what they can do in the finals. And Chunks, do you have the Cow clip?
The Cow clip, I just played it, but we can play it again if you want.
Play it again.
There's no such thing as too much cow, is there?
Oh,
but on the topic of that, let's take a look over at, like, when we saw the top end of that leaderboard. I don't think anyone expected it to look that way, especially with the teams in the lobby. Wildcard up there. We've got Expendables as well. FaZe Clan and Bagopar probably a little bit more expected to be up there, but I mean, The other squads, I think, are a bit hit or miss at times. And I think coming into PGC, they weren't top contenders.
Expendables, yeah, especially. I've never seen them be this consistently good. Even in just Vietnam, they like sometimes win, sometimes do nothing. So I'm really happy to see them doing well too.
It's there's a lot of teams missing at the top there, and I've just sort of given up on predicting what's going to happen. I have sort of given up on even trying to think about Apex. Cerberus felt like the way better team to me coming into this event. Expendables were way better in this bracket. Then you look at NA. If you were just looking at national performance, then there's no way that Sonics get beaten this much by Wildcard. But again, internationals are different, LANs are different. And day one showed a lot of that. Day two showed a little bit more. I think we'll be going through the clips of day two as well. And Saga has managed to already sort of get some Sonics pain into the stats of day one. We'll have a lot more jabs at them in next few clips because really they've just gotten the bad end of the stick a lot of times. This is Jeems shining here a bit, but realistically, Sonics are kind of making him shine. He's just lining up two with the barrel. The rest of the team helps out, and just like that, it's a disaster clip for the Sonics. And just again, really not their bracket. And I want to talk about them more later on. But they look a little bit better towards the end of the game. But that clip right there and then, it's a highlight for FaZe. That's why it's in there, because FaZe have really shown some signs of life again here in day two and day one. But again, it's a bad Sonics pull up that gives FaZe that highlight. So I'm out here looking for highlights, and they just happen to be Sonics lowlights, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate, but no, for sure, we got to give FaZe credit. They have been, I'll say, maybe quietly consistent. Obviously, they got the second place in the Begopar win on game number 2, then flipped the tables and beat Begopar to get the win on the third Quarry Circle. So they were up here with 34 placement points, which is just 3 behind, the team that topped the lobby, and they're in like third place for placement points overall. Just a couple more kills could have done them some favors, but it's another one of those where they're averaging in the 10-game series about 7 points per game, which we go back to the previous round. That's easily enough to get you through to the grand finals. It just came maybe slightly too late, I think, to see it here, where it needed to be a top 4, where we're really having to push the boat out and say, okay, you're going to need like 8-9 points a game. You have to peak really, really hard to guarantee that you're qualifying in the way that a team like Wildcard was able to do.
It's a tricky kind of balance to follow, isn't it? I think that at the end of day one, we had an idea of how things were going to stack up, but when we came into day two, as with every stage of the tournament so far, it's just completely flipped things upside down. I think that going into the later matches, especially match 9, match 10, there was so much potentially that could have switched up, and I think that led teams to make those all-or-nothing plays that we knew were going to come sooner or later, and I think every team wants to avoid that best of 4, so I don't blame them for pulling them out today.
Could you just whip up the day one standings again real quick? The end of day one. All right. One team that has not made it into the top 8 by the end of day one, Kwangdong Freaks. Come out in day 2, back-to-back wins in the first 2 games completely changes the way that the lobby is looking. And they are now suddenly one of the front runners to get in after just those 2 games. And that's how quickly things can change. And again, it's about peaking at the right time. While a team being consistent like FaZe Clan getting 7 points per game is cool, great, like a really solid performance, the fact that Kwangdong Freaks is able to get that double back-to-back chicken dinner that just propels them up ahead of teams like that in the standings, and then the pressure is on with 3 games left to go.
Pressure's on for sure with 3 games left to go, and that's our next clip, and that is a bit of a heartbreak. That is in that first out of the 3 matches that we have left to go. I think it was match 8, maybe it's actually match 9. It's the second, and it's just absolute pain. And it's just, you lose a player to a windmill in the first few seconds. It's a heartbreak for everyone that has them on their fantasy. It's a heartbreak for the team to start a southern circle as well, looting as far north as you can, instantly down a member. And that maybe breaks their back a little bit. But in the other part of that pip, you saw BBL in a compound in the first 3 minutes of the game, and that is exactly where the game ends. It goes all the way south. Brew win the game. Really, really good game for them. They give Kepa absolutely no chance here coming out of the compound. This clip
They gave him a
is
little
just
chance.
is just sort of just a show of how calm and calculated they played that. They took their time. Bit of util used on Kepa, but basically just chilling very hard here on that ridge, making sure that Nuadra can always overwatch, and then at the end, even when they do take the peak, it's
Yeah,
pretty.
it's right
It's on a
here.
safe angle. It's with a lot of support. Nothing can really go wrong here. It's also when the phases started moving.
It's this
Um,
part that makes me sweat a little bit when
yeah,
Ganaxi does take the 1v1 at the
the
end,
thing
even
is,
though they
though,
know he's tagged up. But
he does it at the time where the circles move in, so there's no way Kepa gets the first hit off and pushes out, and it's sort of fine. But then they cut to them, you just see them yawning, and I'm just like, you've just won the game. You've just put yourself back into contention, but it doesn't even feel like they believe. It doesn't even feel like they were like, oh, holy shit, this is the win we needed. It felt more like, okay, we won the game, but it's whatever. And
a 4-kill win does that to a guy.
we look at the leaderboard. It sort of put themselves in contention, maybe with a little bit of copium, but a big game in game number 10 definitely could have done it. Yeah, there it is, the game 9 leaderboard, and if you're looking at the top 4 qualification spots,
It's
that's
over,
sweaty.
right?
That's a little bit,
It's
0
so
points
far
between
from
Expendables and
over.
KDF.
I think you expect one team to go out of there though, just because of how explosive the lobby's been. I feel like we didn't expect 3 teams or whatever to actually start picking up those points. I think going into it, it was only really Begopar that probably were concerned. Of course, there's still a close gap for the other two, but in terms of just keeping that momentum going, I think that we were kind of expecting things not to change all too much.
I don't know. I don't think any of those teams, maybe outside of Wildcard, maybe they're the team that is like, okay, there's no way 4 teams are overtaking us, but as high as question mark, it's a 5-point gap between themselves and Expendables, who are out of the qualification slots. It's super realistic. Because like you say, it's so chaotic. Question mark can't know when like BBL or Buriram or New Happy or Tyloo's just going to rock up in their compound and wipe them out early on, and then it doesn't take much for those other 3 teams. Like an okay game is enough for them to be knocked out of qualification. There's always the off chance that FaZe Clan, I mean, it's Sunday, isn't it? So like they could have just clutched up and
10
knocked
points
a
is
team or 2
nothing
out.
too.
BBL
That's 4
within
kills
reach, Buriram
and a few
technically within
placement
reach.
points.
It's a sweaty situation for the top 4 coming into this one, I think. And I'm not gonna lie, the way that match 10 actually went down didn't make it any better.
So just keep this in mind when we go to the next few clips. Begopar was 4th. And then first clip happens, which is a rough time for them, because not only do they get wiped, you see the live leaderboard on the left. The doors just wide open for everyone in the lobby, and it's also FaZe Clan
as well.
It's also FaZe Clan that gets themselves the 4 kill points, and just like that, Begopar is basically done. Like, there's no way no one gets 2 points there. FaZe is super close already. And then the next clip we see is the
like
Overpeakers TE situation. Yeah.
Literally
and I'll let
after
Saga
the
talk
first
through
clip.
that one. I want to talk a little bit about what happened else in that game afterwards.
Yeah, so basically the zone was like hard shifted down south, so a lot of teams had to try and get over the river. Begopar tried to send it, Diggory sort of caught them out, and they turned back around to try and kill them, and FaZe didn't want to have any of it. Like, the Expendables tried to swim across, like that was ever gonna work, and Overpeakers are watching. We've got another team on the eastern side watching them as well, and then the zone just goes even further southwest, so it's just L territory all around for everyone. And as much as they like want to get, like, it's 2 points that they need to qualify. Technically 3, I think, because
They don't
Begopar
need to
had
win a
the
game.
placement points, but they literally just needed something, and then they're suddenly down to a solo.
Maybe don't play that clip just yet, Chunks.
Okay.
If you can. So what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about that game. Maybe you can give me the screen share.
Yeah, got it.
Because what pretty much happened in this game is a really interesting / weird decision from the Expendables. This is a little bit before the clip we just saw, where they have 2 players on the south, 2 players on the north, fantastic position for a circle like this, where you have maybe a 30% chance of it going southwest, and you have a 70% chance of it going north. You're up for both possibilities. Fantastic, right? And then what they end up doing here is the circle goes south and they go north, and you're just sitting there like, what is going on? I mean, you need 2 points. You need maybe 3 points. You've been south all the time. You probably have decent information on what's going on. The only team that's on the south side here in the ruins just drove past you when you left. Tons and tons of space on the south. There is no way in the world that with a shift like this, there's more teams on the south than the north. It's always going to be the north stacked. They send it north, and they start swimming, and they swim back. They swim back, and then Overpeaker starts crashing. They get into that fight that we've just watched. They lose 3 players here, and Levi's then decides, well, swimming felt kind of cool. I'm going to try that again, and swims over. That is the most APAC I've ever seen. Sort of completely crazy, going for kills on the north when you only need 1 or 2 points. At this point here, there is 9 teams alive. If they would just be sitting in ruins, they would have probably been in placement points right now because they would have killed one of the teams coming in.
The only thing that I could like look at that and say is maybe they were trying to set up a bridge camp on the northern side of the bridge and knowing that there's more teams north that have to send it across. But then I cannot explain the swimming back and forth part. That's where they lose me. I mean, like if they're set up around the bridge here, like that's a decent setup for a bridge camp if a team tries to send it over in vehicles.
Why don't you camp it on the south though as
I
well?
don't know. I can't explain that part, but yeah, they end up as a solo, and they literally needed 3 points to overtake Begopar, and it looks like they've just thrown it all away completely. Meanwhile, BBL is just quietly stacking up like double-digit kills, like already. At this point, they had like 10 kills at this point in the game.
The full squad while we were watching a replay. It was fantastic.
Yeah, so they're now suddenly a contender to get in because they only needed a few points to overtake Begopar, who ended up on 73. So a couple more placement points, a couple more kills. BBL is now a threat for the top 4. It was just crazy at this point, like really chaotic. And Begopar was still technically holding on to that 4th place spot. And with so many teams, FaZe Clan, BBL, and the Expendables still alive, going into like the top 7, top 8, it wasn't good.
This is where Levi's has made the swim. Tickleton's proning in a dip. Smash has
3 solos here.
Smash has absolutely dominated everyone on the northern side to try and keep things alive for BBL. And when this happens, everyone's like, oh, Smash is going to kill Tickleton here. Surely Smash will have a chance to get a kill point. Tickleton gets drive-by. Smash peeks him, tries to get the kills, and Levi's kills Smash. If you can pause this clip, and you'll see it on the live leaderboard, or in the next clip is fine too. Basically, Levi's has done it. Levi's has just pushed himself all the way past Begopar. Nobody else is really a contender because he just killed BBL. The only team that they have to worry about is FaZe Clan. FaZe Clan is the only team that can get a lot of points and still pass the Expendables. So he's just wiped basically he's wiped the contender and passed another one and done a massive job for the Expendables. But it all doesn't mean anything if FaZe Clan manages to kill him, which was the last clip, I guess. But even then, FaZe Clan has to get more points on the board than that. They have to kill Pero or at least get a lot of kill points here.
2nd place, if they could kill a squad, get 2nd, maybe even win the game. It's FaZe, it's Sunday, it could have happened. But this is just the one time where Petrichor Road actually decides to play a game and unfortunately like deny us the FaZe comeback storyline, and they did go out with this little 4v3 not going in their favor, question mark nowhere to be found for third partying to give them any sort of reprieve. And yeah, Petrichor Road just absolutely swipes them aside, and that's it, pretty much locked in from their FaZe in 6th place, 71. Yeah, it was super close. It could have gone either way, and I guess that's the good thing about having this short form, like rapid fire formats, is that the final game has been so impactful every single time, but it also feels really bad for a team like Begopar, who started off so strong and then just it slipped away in the final game, and it feels really, really, really bad.
So, going into that final game, we knew there was the possibility for change, and I'm a little bit surprised that it was 1st place who ended up getting dropped out of there. I think the wildcard with the squad that everyone thought was set in here.
I mean, question mark
Question mark
just
picked up the win.
does question mark things.
Yeah, they
I
did
want to
it.
talk about that a little bit as well. They were dominant in this bracket again. I think the sad thing is FaZe Clan. They again come so close, and they are so consistent, and they are so consistently just barely not in the top and barely not making finals all the time. That's a bit rough. Question mark have been through a roller coaster, and so have the question mark haters. They had 6.3 points per game in the groups, really really solid. Got them into the winners bracket. They had 2 points per game in the winners bracket. That is trash. There is no other way to put it. That is the worst you can really do.
I swear they had
And now
0
they have
points coming into game,
9.1
like,
points per
3 or
game.
4 too. It's mad.
9.1 points in the losers bracket too. Just cruise into the finals as a winner. Nobody knows anymore what's going on with them. Nobody knew before this tournament what would go on with the EU teams, I feel like. And now we have 3 CIS teams in the finals, and all non-CIS teams are playing Grand Survival. So EU has definitely been a bit CIS dominated.
Yeah.
And question mark is the last one to sort of fill that gap.
There's literally not an EU team in finals that isn't from CIS region. So that is a little unfortunate. Again, FaZe could have filled that gap, but not quite. But I guess we're just lucky to have them out here. So yeah, crazy. But we got to give a shout out to the NA teams that made it too. Same difference.
True.
Yahoo, Wildcard, E United. That's 3
Yeah.
of the 12 teams locked in from that region as well. So pretty even so far, and 2
It's-
APAC teams too. So I'm happy. Yeah, I suppose I'll take it.
It's solid. I mean, someone made that point on Twitter. Or a lot of people made that point. It's just one from each region making it through lower bracket 2. There's one thing I want to talk about. It's from the opposite end of the scoreboard. It's question mark was first. Sonics was way down the bottom, but they obviously have a ton of fans. And I was watching the games and I was like, Sonics is pretty good at winning games. And then I realized I'm probably super biased because I've watched every official game in NA in the last year, and it doesn't really reflect their global performances at all. So I went and looked, and in the 3 last globals that they played, PGIS, they had 4 wins in winner chicken dinner. 4 wins in 44 games, so 11 games per win. That is super respectable. That is, the average is obviously a win in 16 games. That would be average, and versus the best in the world, they do a lot better than that. And then in PGC 21, they had 0 wins in 27 winner chicken dinner games. 0 out of 27. That is, again, I said it before about question mark groups. That is trash. That is just not a thing. And you might say, okay, they had a bad tournament. It is what it is. But the one main difference between PGIS and PGC 21 was in PGIS, they played Pachinki Picado. They got every single one of their wins out of Picado in PGIS. They also got 1 win in the finals, in the final week in PGIS, which made them the world champion. It was out of Picado. In PGC 21, they didn't get to play a winner chicken dinner game out of Pachinki or Picado, and they got 0 wins. And I've just asked Tiggleton just to confirm. He said, nah, we're probably not going back to Pachinki Picado because we only have 4 chances. Obviously, they're not going to contest in the Grand Survival.
Makes sense.
But how do you fancy their chances when they have never won a game on LAN where they didn't land Pachinki Picado? That is just I'm
with
not
the leaderboard.
Sure. I'm not feeling very confident right now.
No, I also wouldn't feel very confident considering that in the 10 games played in losers bracket 2, they got 3 placement points across 10 games. That's not that's one. That's like either 3 8th places or like a 5th in 10 games. That's not even close to picking up wins. And this is like the vast majority of the lobby they're going to be playing against. Obviously, we're losing question mark, Wildcard, Kwangdong Freaks, and the Expendables, but we're still bringing in teams like Gen G. So, like, you're still got to be slightly nervous. I mean, much more than slightly nervous that the odds are just simply not in their favor to pick up a win, I think. And even teams like Cerberus, who started off strong, they won the first game of their group. They only got 9 placement points. So they're in a very similar situation where it's like they were looking like one of the clear best APAC teams in the lobby alongside Daytrade, and they have struggled here, and that's going to play on their mind when they only have 4 chances. And Tropic the same as well, only 6 placement points from them in the 10 games. So the teams that are at the bottom end, not always necessarily the more aggressive teams like New Happy or Overpeakers, who we expect to get less placement points, so they're going to have to drastically change their play style. But teams that have been picking up wins in other sections have still struggled, and that's easily
Yeah.
going to be a bit of a mind on your mind coming into tomorrow's 4-game series.
Also, you said it right there, and I think that's a really good point. The top two teams in this lobby were Question Mark and Wildcard Gaming. They're not center teams. They don't play like a Sonics plays. They play on their edge. They play very slow, sort of get the information, move on in. Not really teams where you could say, well, it's hard to play next to Question Mark. No, Question Mark is sitting on the edge. You're a team that loves to pick center compounds and hope to play a 4-man late game. So yeah, it's gonna be rough coming into tomorrow for everyone involved. But when I looked at the stats, I was like, damn, that looks a lot worse for Sonics than I thought at first glance.
I think the adaptability is what's really going to be tested when it comes to that grand survival. It isn't necessarily okay. How do you play when when everything goes your way? It is that scrappy mentality, and we always talk about it with PUBG in terms of what are we actually testing? Are we testing how well you can prepare, how well you can plan things out, or are we testing how you react? And I think that for every team going into grand survival, it's no longer about preparation. It's about, okay, this is what we can do to try and set ourselves up in the best position, but ultimately we just have to play our hearts out. We can't miss a beat.
Doozy made a good point as well in the interview. He said it's going to be crazy because this is the only time we're playing winner winner chicken dinner. Everyone's been playing super this whole tournament.
Yeah,
They've
for
been
sure.
scrimming super. They've been playing super to qualify here, and suddenly it's going to be a completely different game. I can't wait to watch the games tomorrow and get mad about people shooting players that could maybe win them the game. A solo behind the enemy team in a
Yep.
4v4v1, and everyone's just farming them for kill points. And it's not an easy switch to make. It's a completely different game when you're
This
only playing for the
is
win. It's not going to be easy to
easily
just trigger that switch in one day. No break
This is-
time either.
We'll trigger the switch. We're going to trigger Twitch chat as well. Everyone who's spamming rats in the chat is going to be
Oh.
having an absolute field day because even the aggressive teams like BBL, who place like 70 plus points in this set of games and 50 of them were from kills. You really can't be affording to be doing that in a 4-game winner winner chicken dinner format. The aggressive teams like SGD, T5, New Happy, again, Overpeakers, they're not going to be able to play the same style. They're going to have to adapt on the fly, and some of them have definitely proven that this is like their third opportunity to qualify. Adapting on the fly isn't where they're thriving in this format, so it's rough for a lot of these teams. And I'm also pretty sure that it's going to be rough to have to try and pick a fantasy team when all the players who you expect to go out and get kills are more than likely going to be proning in dips and waiting until phase 9. It's going to be tough, dude.
That is a go-to transition. I have one more very quick point to make. I am
damn
very
it.
scared for the teams that in super format send it to a center compound and take a risky crash to try and win the game. Because you crash that compound, you're BBL, you're flying into a random compound blindly. Maybe you get the compound, maybe you wipe the team in there. You'll have 4 more teams crash in that compound because everyone wants to play that way in winner winner chicken dinner format. And if you can avoid those fights and actually put yourself in good positions somewhere in the center, I think you're way better set up than one of those center crash teams. But yeah, let's have a quick look at how the fantasy went. I know it didn't go pretty for me, but looking by the looks of things, at least I didn't get absolutely battered by you guys either.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is Saga's that's up on screen right now. This is the one that's probably the best. I mean,
Probably.
in terms of placement.
Statistically the best, thank
He's
you.
a little bit ahead of us, ever so slightly. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
embarrassed by
it's-
my picks though, because the worst thing is last week I picked PO and I was like, okay, I'll make him my captain. He won't disappoint, and then he disappointed a little bit, and I
That
was
is
like, I'm not
painful.
gonna make him captain. I'll get like one of the brew players because surely they're gonna do well, and yeah, that didn't go great for me.
Yeah, that's 60 points you're missing there. That's unfortunate.
Don't
To be
remind me.
fair, for me, it's it's not as drastic, but it's pretty similar. If we flip back to mine real quick, so we're looking back at everyone's tier lists and New Happy being at the top, and we're like, okay, this is the weakest lobby they're playing in. Surely New Happy starts popping off at some point. So you put in Zibiani, you make him your captain, and he performs the worst out of everyone on your team, which we love to see. But I'm just kind of happy I picked one player from 3 of the top 4 teams, so I've got that going for me. But just put that captain role somewhere else. It could have been better.
I am just a little bit sad that
I love that 9.
I picked. I mean, obviously, you know, I picked a good captain here, and that's the only reason I got any points whatsoever. I picked Cow in a stage before this. I picked Vex in a stage before this. Every time I pick them, they did terribly. And I usually, you know, I annoy players a little bit that go fall for the recency bias. You know, they remember a recent circle, they think the game has to play that way again. Well, I kind of fell for my recency bias regarding sort of the Vex performance and the Waikiki Mukau performance. Didn't pick them again. Didn't pick a doozy again either, who I had in a previous stage. And yeah, I mean, you can see how that went.
So I've just
I
clicked
picked,
on
by the way,
the.
out of the 4 bottom teams, I picked 3 of them, Saga. So we're pretty,
Yeah, excellent.
you
Love
know, we
that.
balance each other out, I feel like.
I give a shout out to Ezza because I've just looked at the global leaderboard for this phase. She's in 2nd place. And a
Damn.
shout out to OCE scene legend Celery in top 7. Absolute chad of the game. Loved watching his 1 kill bolt action highlight reel clips when he first started a couple of years ago. So good to see that he's got the game knowledge coming along nicely. Shout out Celery. Absolute legend.
It's good to know OC are actually going to win something this PGC.
Hey, come on, Cow and Knickers are doing decent. Well, come on, where's the respect?
Well,
Put some
look,
respect on their name.
this is the thing. I want to make predictions and I want to be like, yeah, these guys are cracked, but we've seen it so many times where everything
It's
we think
hard.
that's going to happen is just completely wrong. I would not be surprised if Tropic come out now and just go win tomorrow and
Yeah.
just make it straight through and win the
Could be.
finals. Cerberus,
Literally
I mean, just
bottom
anyone
4
in the
from
bottom end,
this.
yeah.
Could be the ones that go through. You just can't predict, especially in Chicken Dinner format. I guess the one thing you can predict is probably exactly where the circles are going because they don't seem to be going anywhere else in this event. So everyone's wants to go quarry, I guess. Sure.
Same style of
But
circle again.
yeah, we really got to hope that we're getting something a little different, especially for a team like Entropic, who's probably going to be somewhere around like Milta Power area, and like they don't want to be having to come in super late and fight against all the edge heavy teams. So who knows? 4 games, it's not good odds for anyone involved, but especially those that are coming in late, like Genji, Tiamba, that only have like less than 4 chances. Super rough.
It's super rough and it's going to be super random. But honestly, if you're going to do winner winner chicken dinner format, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Teams have had so many chances now.
Yeah.
Teams have shown, a lot of these teams have shown fantastic consistency, fantastic performances. And the teams who didn't still have a chance. So I don't mind it that much. I think I've gotten a lot of feedback from viewers as well that say, well, this is going to be super exciting. And of course, the players are not going to like it. No player is ever going to like winner winner chicken dinner format. But I think this is, if you're going to be using it, this is the way to use it, and I'm pretty excited for tomorrow.
I feel.
Because
I was just going to say, I feel pretty comfortable in saying that this PGC is probably the best format of a global event that we've ever seen. Like, it's confusing at first, but I think that I haven't got the graphics set up right now, but you know that little graphic I showed in, I think, the last episode where it had a breakdown of how it all works? As soon as you see that and you see, oh, actually, this makes a lot of sense, it becomes the best format because you have so many chances, but you're not guaranteed off the get-go.
No, for sure. It's something that like people have. We said it at the start. People have been trying to make double elimination work in PUBG for a while, and like brainstorming formats. And I think it's very fair now to say that if you are playing in the Grand Survival, it's because you haven't played well enough up to this point. There's no one in there who we can say like they don't deserve to be going out. It's like even if it has been a team like FaZe where it's been consistent but they haven't quite peaked, it's like, well, you had chances. Like they did pretty decent in groups, but they should have done better in winners bracket, and then they should have done better in losers bracket too. And then like now is really their final chance. The fact that they're still having a lifeline is something to throw out there at the very least. Again, it does feel a little bad for Luminosity to be the first team to go out, but it's the same sort of situation where it's like if you're coming last place in the losers bracket, there's not really much to be said about that, but at the very least, everyone else still has a bit of a chance. So we could still see a huge Genji come back in the one game that they have to try and qualify, but if they go out in that game, then it's impossible to say that they didn't really deserve it based on their previous performance.
If there's a squad to do it though, it's Genji. I'm gonna be honest.
sure.
Like if there's one squad that's gonna come out and in one game get a chicken dinner, it's gonna be Genji. And I think that
written in the stars, isn't it?
yeah, it's not guaranteed, but at the same time, it's Genji. They
might as well
just
be.
pull things off when they shouldn't, and they don't pull things off when they should. I think that's the only point I have to make on that one.
Should we all try and pick one team that's gonna qualify tomorrow?
Oh, I
Ooh,
hate it. But
okay.
Sure.
I have
Should we
I have like a picture here. I can
Yeah,
send
I was
or I
about
can
to ask for
screenshare
that.
if you want.
The-
I'll just post a picture
okay,
in the
okay.
chat of who's coming from today. Or I can do it without pictures too. I think I'm just gonna send it again with the full EU bias
Yep.
and say overpeakers. Not because they've performed,
Really?
but because they are a team that can win games or they can absolutely bottom out. They've played for wins in this stage as well. Lots of crashes on early compounds, a lot of sort of trying to go for the game-winning play. Didn't really work out for them a whole lot of times, but I think they're sort of ready for a most chicken or winner chicken dinner and kind of play style. So I think I'm gonna back overpeakers.
Saga, I feel like I have an idea who you're gonna go with, but go for it.
If you're expecting me to be biased, you're goddamn right, son. I think the easy, safe answer is Petrichor Road. They've won like a fair number of games throughout the event, so they've shown that they're still like comfortable doing it. BBL is also a big possibility for the same reason as Overpeakers. FaZe Clan's a pretty solid bet, but I think, like we said, Cerberus has come out, and obviously they didn't do great in this section, but during the group stage, which was a tougher lobby, they did succeed, picked up a fair number of wins, so hopefully they can just come out and be more comfortable in this, which is like kind of an oxymoron going into a grand survival, but I still back them to be able to close out a game, so they've got 4 chances to do it.
So for me, my initial thought is like if it was over the space of 5 to 10 games, I would have gone BBL because I feel like they have the playstyle where if everybody is playing slow and going for the win, they can exploit it and just bully everyone because they'll crash in, they won't care, and then that compound that you've been holding since phase 1 is no longer yours. And I think that that's why they're the team that I'd look at. But the fact is, in so few matches, can they do that? I don't think so. When we look at squads who can come out, as you guys mentioned, Overpeakers, they're a squad that I think definitely likely to win. I am going to back someone controversial in form of GEX. Because
I was thinking about it, you know?
They're not a kill-heavy team a lot of the time. They are a team that is confident coming out and playing it a little bit slower and then applying the pressure when it matters. So I'm going to go with GEX. I think that they are a team that...
I thought about it.
It's an all-or-nothing moment for them, and at this point, when you're in Grand Survival, I don't think any of these teams have anything to lose because at this point, you're not making it to the final as it stands.
They clutched up in last PGC as well, picked up a very solid placement, so would be not too surprising to see them make it as well. I also think on the BBL point, you know, we talked about how it's probably in Grand Survival WWCD format, there's going to be a whole lot more like compound crashes for central positions because it just matters so much more that you're getting the 9-zone feeds. And if there is a team that has been the most successful in either taking the aggressive stance and crashing compounds or defending against it, it's probably BBL in this tournament. So I think if it comes down to, all right, we have to send it at this one compound, they're probably going to be the team that's the most successful in doing that. So I think that plays into their favor, but at the same time, it's very coin flippy. So I don't know. It could really go anyway, but
I can see the GX win.
Yeah.
I can see the storyline for sure. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be random as fuck, and it's going to be super exciting. Is that a good time to call it and to tell everyone to be back for our pre-final episode? On probably Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, we're not sure when it will be coming out. We're going to do a pre-recorded one there, hopefully bring you guys a little bit more info and go a bit more in depth than we have in the past few episodes as to as many teams as possible, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see you all in a few days. Thank you everyone again for watching. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff.
Use creator codes.
Yeah, we will hit you. We will hit you up in a few days and see you on the flippity flop.